don't know where any of the stuff is.
We're
Just,
talking right now. We're live right now, Joe.
Perfect.
Welcome to Nerds of Legend. It's just two of our lovely
Two
hosts
nerds
today. One is on vacation, and one decided to come down with the plague of some sort. So it's just going to be the two of us. Like we said last week, we're going to be doing a little...
And the Bingley.
And the Bingley. But that's the Bingley. So we're just going to do a little, it's behind the DM screen. We're going to talk about sort of different things the DMs do to prepare. I've got a campaign that I might be doing at some point. I'd like to kind of start getting ready for it. Thought maybe we could springboard ideas, talk about how DMs prepare, talk about kind of what goes into a planning a session, so that kind of that's something that people kind of don't know about necessarily. So I think
I've DM'd a day or two.
Yeah. DM Joel's is significantly more seasoned at DMing than I am. So thought it'd be good for us to talk about it because I'm pretty much a noob, and he's been DMing for 3 years now?
I've been playing for like 3.5 and DMing for 3, yeah.
So I guess the first question.
But nerding my entire life.
Yeah, it's always been a nerd.
Yeah, I nerded before it was cool to be a nerd.
Yeah, back when you got your butt beat for it. No.
Yeah. I don't think that ever was a thing. Like I don't, in the
90s movies tell me that it was a horrible hellscape to be in high school.
Which is funny because like I was raised in that was my high school years was in the 90s. The late 90s is when I graduated in 96. So I don't know. What's that, dead middle 90s?
You're so old.
Yeah, shut up. You were birthed in like 2006. I'm aware. Shut up. But yeah, it's just weird. Like I don't remember people being like, "Do you like wizards?" And I'm like, "Yes," and then they beat me up. I don't remember that happening.
Well, I think I'm assuming what it is that was something that happened in like the 70s and 80s, and then like those people that grew up in high school. I
suspect it never happened.
Or you think it never happened? It was just like something that Hollywood thought happened for some reason?
Well, no. You know how like incels get there and they're like, I could be a jock too if I didn't like wizards. Like, yeah. I think it's just like a self-imposed exile. No, we're just different. Like, I never felt impoverished because I sat there and was like playing, like I would read about dragons and watch, like the Flight of Dragons and stuff like that. I never felt like, oh my God, I'm not cool. I didn't give a shit. Like, it was fun.
Yeah.
I like to forge and make stuff out of metal, and nobody's like, nerd.
Yeah.
I do think it was like a Hollywood trope.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was something that some guy in Hollywood that was making all those television shows.
He's the only guy ever that was bullied for
that. So like he assumed that everyone's high school experience was the same as his.
Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon's the one that did it. He's like, somebody told me I was a nerd because I liked dice. I'll show them. I'll make Buffy.
Yeah. So, back on topic.
Yeah, sorry about that. I apologize ahead of it's Ben and I, so we will get off topic a lot.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that one. So buckle in for a very non sequitur ride.
I brought this up to you before, Joel, and I always assumed from when we had talked that you don't put a whole lot of prep work into planning a session, but then you vehemently opposed me.
Yeah.
In that respect, so I'd like to hear a little bit about like how you get ready for a session.
I like again. I want to preface the most important thing for a DM or any game master is the familiarity of the group. We said, I've been DMing for three years, almost. Like I like the storytelling. That's my go-to. I think it's probably like in my nature to tell a story. And I'm very fortunate because I have a group that's consistent. The fellow nerds of legends like David, you, Brian, you guys show up consistently. And so like I know where you're at, so that gives me an ability to play. But you remember back when we were playing with that big group, and it became like just this mess. of like trying to keep everybody on track. Um, that became too cumbersome. So it didn't matter what I did. Like I would have to shoot from the hip regardless because people not knowing your players is the most important part. And I have the blessing of knowing the three of you and your play styles. So my preparation is more I get to move my story forward and I have to figure out like how am I gonna bait? Like is this very important? Am I gonna need somebody to go?
Mhm.
Am I gonna need somebody to grab this like point of interest and then move forward? So like in the case of Nerds of Legends and the Eberron campaign, um Ticto's my plot pusher. Okay. I know your play style and I can dangle a piece of information in front of you or an artifact or something that you're gonna have to go after. And I know the way you play because you as a person are all about dragging the story forward.
Yep.
So I will create usually 2 or 3 possible scenarios, each with a different piece of bait that works. Sometimes it's a spell, sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's hey, what's that over there?
Yeah.
And Ticto will almost always go after it. Just
Ticto
because
will follow the shiny thing.
Yes. David is another one that's pretty good for that. David is good for his David is one of the players that plays very true to his character. All right, his character in this one is a mercenary. He's all about getting coin and apparently collecting various different types of sandwiches. But he never breaks the character.
Mhm.
He's never like, I'm gonna give this one a freebie. I'm gonna do this. David is the same. So it's another one like if you're not buying the bait, I can put in a piece and be like a random NPC popping in and being like, "Hey, I need you to go do this. I'll pay you gold." And then David's gonna like Fodor's gonna pop up and be like, "Gold? Yes,
Yeah. Gold sandwiches.
yeah."
Sandwiches.
The only one that I struggle with is Brian, and that's because Brian always plays deep layered character.
Mm-hmm.
Like Edward in the beginning was this meek thing who you're like is scared of confrontation. Now I'm fairly certain he's going to be like, "It was I releasing the Chained Oblivion all along," and you'll be like, "Oh, okay." Like
Yeah.
he's just
All of a sudden, it's gonna be he's the master.
he's
He's
going to
gonna
be the
turn
big
himself
bad.
into
I'll
the
be
big
like, "How did
bad.
this happen?"
I didn't plan for this. This
Yeah.
isn't what I wrote down.
But like,
yeah, I remember that one session where you were trying to get us out of Sharn, and I swear I think you dangled 3 different plot hooks in front of him before he actually
yeah,
grabbed onto one, and it was literally you putting a guard captain in front of him and saying, "What are you doing?
yeah,
Come with me."
yeah. Sometimes you do have to take the direct approach, especially with like explorer characters. You have some people that are so much about the game
Mhm.
that they want to do literally everything.
Yeah.
They want to do if there's 10 doors in a room, they got to open all 10 of them. So and sometimes it can be frustrating.
If you
Like
ever put us in a dungeon, that's probably what Ticto would do. But
yeah, but do you remember that Descent to Avernus game we played years ago?
yeah,
And
I remember.
I was like, the character is lost to the curse and has no idea what's going on. Like, obviously, is seeing a different world than you are in. This person stopped playing and was like, "That's the only way to move the story on." But I literally said, "She has no more information as she is lost to the curse." And he's like, and he refused to do anything ever again, like in the game because I wouldn't let him talk to him, and he got all mad.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the sometimes the immersion in the world and the following of your own storyline can be detrimental. And that was one of the only times I did not have a means to counteract it as a DM because like this person literally was like picked up some random thing and was like, "This is what saves the day," and you're like, "That's an elbow rest."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that has anything to do with anything, and they're like, "No, it does." So sometimes you get that, but not
Yeah. Okay. So I think that answers how you deal with
I
us
mean,
as players. But
you
what
mean
would you
so?
say that like would go into like say you sit down, you're gonna plan our session for the week. What are you doing when you do that? You looking at monsters? You coming up with what story
Oh
beats we're
yeah,
gonna hit?
yeah.
Like,
I definitely. I usually have 2 or 3 different regions, like your last one.
mm-hmm,
Okay, the Nabastu. Your big bad. The chain breaker one. Like that was a demon. It was obviously it was. I had thought like what would be the most likely thing, and you also have to match your character, your monsters to the area you're in. Like you
mm-hmm,
can't suddenly have like unless you're really really creative, you can't really be like they're gonna fight a red dragon in the middle of Waterdeep,
yeah,
and how to get there. Why is it there? What is it doing?
why,
Like
yeah. Why is
May
there a dragon in the middle of Market Square?
right. Like everybody likes like there's a period with high fantasy
Mm-hmm.
that you like the weird and you like the over the top, but like you also have to balance it with if I lived in this world, would this make sense?
Yeah,
You know? Like
you're
you
not gonna
can't have a
find an
goblin.
you're not gonna find an era elemental in the Underdark. Like,
No, no, you're not going to find an air elemental in the Underdark. You're not going to find a goblin horde of like 20 goblins hanging out in like the Temple of Bahamut. Like it
yeah,
has to make sense. Like you're not, unless you're very creative. Like if you're in a place where a lot of rules, like Eberron gives you a lot of freedom because like a lot of the creature rules don't apply. Like you could have goblins with jobs, like our library run by goblins.
mm-hmm,
You can have, you know, ogres that brew beer,
mm-hmm,
and it's but you have to be aware of your
yeah,
typical surrounding and what is and for a lot of players to bring in something like you're in the Temple of Bahamut, suddenly you're besieged by a bunch of demons. You're like, how did they get here? This doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Unless that's a critical point to show
Something
a
is
point of
amiss.
corruption.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Like the Celestials, the show of the waning power of Saloon, um, was indicated by the demons now being all over the gates of the moon.
yeah. Yeah.
So because like the last thing you'd expect to see in a celestial realm is an infernal creature,
Yeah.
unless you know something's going wrong.
Yeah. And
And I feel like going back over that episode and looking at it, I feel that it definitely did give you the jarring
yeah.
motion of like, wait a minute, that's not what's supposed to be here.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, just interject real quick. I see there's a couple people watching the stream right now.
Oh, hello.
I mentioned it on the chat, but if you guys have any questions for DMs or DM planning or anything about Dungeons and Dragons, just throw it up on the chat, and we'll do our best to answer whatever you
Oh
got.
yeah, I
So
would love that.
yeah, I
Any
mean, I
questions
can
are
keep
good
racking
questions.
my brain for questions, but um,
Oh, yeah, I
definitely would
would
like
definitely
people to
prefer to have
participate.
someone else.
Yeah. Uh, so you mentioned that you kind of plan your encounter around you plan our sessions around kind of like what you want us to encounter. I guess another thing is I know I've played with you a while, and we've played with and without modules. So what are your thoughts on modules? I kind of might know the
Um,
answer already, but what's kind of what's your approach to using those, or do you use them, or I know
my
they're
my I love modules,
yeah.
but I'm not I'm not a person who's like, oh my god, I need to have um a module because I find modules to be very constricting as
Mm-hmm.
well. I look for I like the idea like modules give you great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was like Nerds of I think it was no not Nerd Descent to Avernus
Mm-hmm.
where your first thing is a cult living in the sewers and which is like a super tropey thing,
Yeah.
like what's going on, but there's still it's stuff in the idea of like a cult operating in the underneath is great. and those can be like adapted to your own play. So while I don't like the restriction of a module, I do like a lot of the ideas that come out of it. I mean, some of the best DMs in the world write these things, you know, like Christopher Perkins and Matt Mercer write these things, and they're ridiculous. So I mean, like, you just get a lot of ideas to throw into your own campaign. But sometimes I feel them to be a little bit railroady at the times.
It's funny because I mean, I've tried to run a couple different modules, and I feel like a lot of times, at least the couple that I've tried to play are so open ended. It's hard to almost plan for anything. You know, I tried to do an Icewind Dale campaign one time, and I felt like there's like I knew what I wanted the players to hit, but like it was so open ended that I didn't know how to get them there. I didn't know, you know.
Icewind Dale was, I don't know if you've done other modules, but Icewind Dale was a unique one.
Yeah,
Because Icewind Dale did have that pretty much open forum
yeah, it was an open
for
world sort of thing, just depending on where you ended up, where your people ended up. And I
it was, to me, that was atypical. Like a lot of them are much
mhm,
more linear. Um,
really,
yeah. Um, it Icewind Dale did leave an awful lot to like, let's go here,
yeah,
and it required a lot of like leading people by the hand into
yeah.
certain places.
Yeah, you have to like
Um,
figure out a way to drop rumors so that the players, you know,
yeah,
latch onto it and actually decide to go and visit town X or Y or.
and you had 10 towns, you had that whole
Mhm.
region to work with. Like when
Yeah.
it's a lot easier
Well, you
than
have
like
10 towns, and then once you get. That's all chapter one, is each town has its own little
yeah,
mystery or adventure. And then after that, chapter two, there's like 20 more regions that open up. And then
yeah,
finally,
that's a
chapter
rough one to
three
play.
is like all those plot lines kind of come back together. It was wild.
Well,
But,
like I've done Princes of the Apocalypse, and I've done um and Descent to Avernus, and the beginning of them are very linear. You know,
mm-hmm,
like Descent to Avernus, you're hired by the guard. Um, you go do this,
mm-hmm,
kill the cultists of the dead three. You
mm-hmm.
know, cool. Tides of the Apocalypse. The city is being sacked. You have to save a bunch of people and try to get them out of the city. Cool. Like very direct. And they're both kind of similar. Is one is like cultists. The other ones are like
Mm-hmm.
cultists. Cultists seem to be a really big popular
Well,
way to go. I think
I
so.
feel like it's good though for like the beginning of a campaign to start with that
Yeah, it's a very quick,
because
easy, accomplishable goal.
like what happens if you started with like 20 different choices right at the beginning, and all of
Yeah,
a sudden
yeah,
all of
it
your
is.
players wanted to go in a different direction because they're playing in character and none of them are bonded to each other.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to be like, hey, we're all gonna work on this common goal.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, so. And I mean, like, it is a lot easier for uniformity of the party if you're like, we all know each other and we've
mm-hmm,
known each other for years. You know, like
yeah,
that's a very big thing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, those are important plot points to go towards too.
Mm-hmm. So.
But I think the most important thing is one consistent player group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you don't have like if I was just sitting down with a whole new group of people, like tomorrow I just sat down and was like four people I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I going to talk to? I think I would start with stuff like house rules, tables.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Session
what are my
zero.
rules? Yeah. Well, not so much a session zero, but Brian Ballard turned me onto this my very first game. Brian is way more than I am. He gives you a binder,
Mm-hmm.
but his binder is like mostly note paper and like your character sheet and stuff like that. But um yeah, it's his rules are like make sure it's fun. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like don't deliberately target other players.
Yeah.
Don't um like I have to like his is the crit tables, the fumble tables. His are show up, reasonably on time and be willing to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do not come to the game and be like, I'm gonna just cause havoc because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was the one that really helped push the idea of the game is a social contract. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to understand that, like, what are your go-tos? Like, you have your house rules. Like, I don't mind. I like the what is it? The quick drinker thing
Yeah.
for the table rule. Like, you could drink a health potion as a bonus action. That's cool. I like that. I am more not rules as written. I definitely enjoy mine.
Mm-hmm.
The way I play it. I'm not a rules lawyer because I don't feel the need. Some of the stuff is fun, like the nuances of it, but I feel those need to be explained, and because you have to figure out who's going to be able to be there or not. Because there's some people that literally the player's handbook, they've read it 75 times.
Mm-hmm.
You do everything according to it, and they will ruin gameplay for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like we remember that one player who steadfastly would only want to argue about why the rogue is doing this. You're not a rogue, dude. Why do you care?
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
page 37 of the player's handbook
Yeah.
says.
It just ruins everybody. Everybody's fun. It's not fun for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the most important, to be like, hey, this is how I am. I'm willing to run you through this. This is my way of running the game, and set those rules up ahead of time, because if you don't, you need to make sure your party is on the same page, and the idea of the social contract of you're here, you've committed at least 2 hours, be
Mm-hmm.
here these 2 hours, because nothing's more annoying than trying to play a game and you got people like in their phones or wandering off or doing whatever. Stop. Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
You know.
So, I guess another question comes to mind of I know some DMs like to do a session 0, and they're big on character background and whatnot. But I know from characters that I've played with you that you're not big on characters having like a background like made up before the campaign starts. Why is that?
No, I am. It's I'm not. I don't want to know your character story,
Mm.
because remember, I'm taking this journey with you.
Okay.
So, like, if you sit there and are like, my character's addicted to blah blah, great,
Mm-hmm.
great. You could have let that come out in the game, because that
Mm-hmm.
that gives me more of a a chance to interact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you tell me like a full backstory, that's great. I love the backstory. The more fleshed out of a backstory is great. I don't want to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I get to go on the discovery of the character too.
Mm-hmm.
And though I am the DM and I create 99% of the world, I don't want to sit there and like have you railroaded in and be like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not entertaining to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you have a backstory and you want to let it go through gameplay, awesome. Like, let me learn your character as you're growing,
Sure.
Because remember, it's like a lot of people think the DM just has everything there and they just tell the story. And no, some of us like to enjoy this story too. I mean, I get super involved in mine. I actually visualize everything. Like, remember when you watched that Legend of Vox Machina? I was like, that's how I see our campaigns in my
Mm-hmm.
head. Like, I see them play out. And so when something throws me for a loop, I'm legitimately thrown for a loop. I'm not like, oh my God, like, I'm not playing it out. Like, I'm literally just as mirthful as you that I rolled a 2
Mm-hmm.
and all of that shit didn't work, you know? So, I mean, but again, experienced players that I'm comfortable with.
It's
So,
interesting because I know other TMs that I've had, they like to have that backstory so that they have plot threads that they can, based off that backstory, that they can throw in, like points of conflict or, relatives
yeah, but
or.
I can pull that out by by an NPC communication, by NPC
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can get the backstory. They don't have to hand you a book that's like chapter 1, take those early years,
Mm-hmm.
And you can figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, but that's just me. I don't know many that are like that.
Yeah.
I want to know. I just, again, I'm not a typical DM because I have an established group of players that are constant, and that is when you're with a player that's constant, you know what they're gonna do. Like I know you're not gonna lie on rolls, you're not gonna overplay something, you're not gonna underplay stuff. You're gonna be active,
Mm-hmm.
but you're gonna be appropriate. And so I can give a fair amount of trust to the three of you that I play because I know you're not gonna be like I'm a level 3 wizard, but secretly have like three ninth level spells. Like you're gonna legitimately play your character as you're supposed to, and you're not gonna tell me like that was a 2 when you're not like that was a 20 when in reality it was a 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Sorry, just looking at some notes. Okay. So I so like we talked about earlier, I'm about to possibly be DMing a new campaign. Uh, what do you think should go into, like, I don't know these players that well. They're, in this instance, some coworkers. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you think I should be doing to get ready for, I mean, this might be a campaign. This might just be like a one shot, but like I don't know, what their
First,
level of commitment's going to be. So,
first off, I think that's the most important thing is to find out what is their level of commitment. Are they looking to make it a one and done, maybe 3 times, and then be finished with it? Um, and then what is their experience level? Are they all experienced players?
mm-hmm.
Are they noobs?
I think we've got from talking. I think we've got a fair mix of players. It sounds like before, the world changed, before the Fire Nation attacked,
before the Sundering, yeah, before Sozin's comment,
yeah,
of COVID,
they had a fairly active group. Like maybe not like once a week like us, but they'd probably get together once a month or once every other week or something like that. But I mean, I might DM for them, and they might hate my DMing. So who knows?
yeah. I would honestly suggest if they are established players and you're the new one to the group, what I would suggest to you is probably get in there and do the sessions here. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure you learn their strengths. You don't have to learn their backstories unless you want to,
Yeah.
but make sure the party is balanced so that you don't end up coming in there and
With three rogues
getting
and
get 3 rogues and no fighters or
yeah,
no healers or 3 tanks
yeah.
and
One thing I've noticed with our current party comp is that we don't have a lot of sustain.
What do you mean?
So like if we get hit hard,
Oh yeah, you better hope Edward's feeling
we
it.
better be we're gonna be like, if we don't end the fight quick, we're not gonna be there for long because Ticto's a glass cannon. Edward isn't Circle of the Moon, so that he doesn't have like 30 wild shapes that he can just keep recycling through.
Yeah, but he has the chalice forms, which are cool.
Yeah,
He has
that
the
is pretty
forms,
nice.
which are cool. So
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about them, but luckily it's played by Brian, so I get to
Mm-hmm.
learn the character as he does it.
It's a really cool class.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would suggest like you make sure you get there and get their party formation, get
Mm-hmm.
there, like establish your DM rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll give you a better idea of where you're gonna go.
Yeah.
Also, are you doing a homebrew or are you doing a module? What module?
I kind of I kind of want to, I've done modules before, but a lot of the modules I don't really want to start unless I'm gonna like have like a regular group,
I mean, you got the DM guild. The DM's guild is a ton of stuff. Like, if you want a module,
I know I've tried that before, and I feel like it's kind of like fallen flat when I've like DM'd for you and the boys and stuff. So
well, that's because you're trying to DM for children, And like
This
one
is
is the
fair.
third. One is like a. I think when you were doing it, Quinn was 10, Leo was 6. Like the fact that you got Leo anything past 2 dice rolls, you should be like,
I forget that fact. I forget how young they were when we tried that.
yeah, they're super young. Like I played Dungeons and Dragons. They're like, we want to start a campaign. I'm like, awesome. So they're like, we're gonna start Prince of the Apocalypse. I got literally 1 hour into it, and it was with Leo, Quinn, Isaiah, and then David was playing with Isaiah, and Isaiah didn't give a damn about anything going on. He was like, as long as he could pancake, literally, it had to be pancake. He had to hit everything with his hammer, and it had to go. And I was like, so I started throwing creatures out there that are like 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I squish it with my hammer. You're a gnome. That's not possible. And he's like, well, I'm out of ideas. You know, like I'm a one-trick pony here. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to. I know. I kind of want to homebrew something. So.
Well, then do it. But that takes more prep.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm good at it is I live in my head. Like I know exactly the story, and you guys kind of help me tell it as I go. But I mean, I know the point A, point B that I want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since I'm also piggybacking off the previous campaign where you guys
helps
destroyed the world and now you're dealing with the ramifications.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons Hangover. Like, let's be ridiculous. And then what? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what happened because all these villainous characters went and decided to pursue their own ends.
Yeah.
And what's the aftermath?
Yeah, you guys are terrible.
I know we've kind of talked about this off mic, but were you always planning on our current campaign tying into the last one?
No.
No?
Nope. Absolutely not. It was going to be something totally different.
What was the moment where you were like, well, I feel like these two things need to...
I was struggling. I was struggling with where I was going to get, like, what I was going to do. Because originally my plans were, I'm going to dangle these pieces in here, people trying to connect an ancient artifact to bring back this thing, which it's very much still a thing. But, like, I was talking to Ballard. And I was talking to Brian, and Brian was like, hey, man, I was like, where do you think we're going? And he's like, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be, you know, kind of think it's like a follow-up of whatever we did at the last campaign. And I loved it as soon as he said it. Yeah. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing.
And it just, like, happened to be that, like, I had picked a time wizard that would be, like, able to tell that something had changed.
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know where you had decided to make that change because
that point.
Yeah.
Honestly, that conversation right there, I did, and I just like played it up like, oh yes, of course, that's how I thought it was going to be.
You're like, yes, Brian, obviously that's where it's
going. You 100% didn't just turn around my entire campaign idea in one sentence. Yeah.
I know. I still think the scroll thing is important. You could still have that factor in.
Who said it's not?
Yeah, that's true. So, I don't know. Again, anyone on watching us right now, if you have any questions, feel free to throw it on the chat. I'm kind of running out of ideas.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's harder without the whole group.
Yeah.
You know, but what are yours? Like, what are your infuriating things for a DM? Like, what is the things you can't really stand? Like what a DM does as a player. Even things
as a player.
Yeah, because you got to. That's another end. Is think about what kind of player you want to have.
I'd say one thing that is there's that one point where we did like 2 or 3 sessions in a row, and like Ticto is obviously a very abrasive personality, and he tends to misspeak, and he tends to like piss people off. And I think there's like 2 or 3 sessions in a row where you used Ticto as like you were like Ticto would say something wrong, and you just like use him as like, this is what it feels like to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
but
But
you would not allow him to backpedal at all.
I don't. But that's one of my rules. Is like I never let them back.
But like it wasn't like I was trying to get out of the situation. It was trying to be like Ticto was like, what I mean was, and it's just like.
Was that the time? I mean, like
it was with Bird. It was with Watcher.
Oh yeah, that was just fun though. Like I spent a lot of time, like as I said, I live in my head, so like I spent a lot of time thinking like, what would I feel like if suddenly I'm in like, this beautiful celestial realm, and somebody's like, come here, and you're like, suddenly you're stuck in the material plane being used as like the eyeballs of some, growing wizard. You're like, it was perfect where I was at, and now it's bullshit. It's like suddenly you're at 75-degree weather, light breeze, swinging in a hammock, and next thing you know, you're at work, and you're like, this is horse shit. I hate it.
Why am I working?
Why is this here?
Well,
this
he's not celestial. He's got their astral spirits, I believe.
You said it, but it can be a celestial. According to the rate, the thing, it can be a celestial or an astral spirit, and this one by a dice roll became celestial. Remember?
I don't remember that. But
yeah,
I will
Watcher's celestial, and he hates it. He hates being here.
It's not fair because Joel watches all of our streams repeatedly, and then he can remember all the things that happened.
Somebody's got to watch them and like remember what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't. I mean, I'm hoping one day we get a viewer totally, like, viewer numbers so high that they can be like, actually, in episode 6, 4 minutes and 35 minutes into the campaign after break, you said this, and I could be like, son of a bitch, But then I also, at that time, I thoroughly plan on hating it and pretending that I didn't. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think
that was a frustrating one because I was like, it's just Ticto's a ass.
Yeah,
he's not but he's not trying to be. It's
you gotta remember, character. Like other people are jackasses too.
That's fair.
Like you can't sit there and be like, oh no, it's just Ticto's personality. Well, that's like the people that are like, I have freedom of speech. Yes, and you also have the freedom to get punched in the mouth for being a dick.
If you can't, if you can't handle Ticto at his worst, then you don't deserve him at his best.
We're in a committed relationship now. Is that what you're saying? Relationship goes Ticto.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I don't think I've really had. I'd have to go way back to think about where I've had bad DMs before, but
you're like, I had this one guy running me through Eberron. He was a jagoff.
No,
I that's like right now.
I feel like one of the greatest things about having you as a DM is like we do freaking nuts shit like all the time, and you're just like, okay. And just like pivot.
So that's what we're doing today.
Yeah. Like just regardless of like whether or not you had any idea it was going to go that way or not, you're like, well, that's what we're doing now. So
yeah. Well, you guys do. Unfortunately, you guys do. The worst part about being a DM, unfortunately, the players do make decisions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they are insane.
What's wild is to me is you say that all the time, but I feel like whenever like I feel like I'm always trying to act within like the interests of what the story is that I'm in.
Yeah, but the thing is that's still a broad category.
That's fair.
You know, like the amount of things. Remember, you are a wizard. You
Mhm.
can legitimately do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And like I mean, you shot some guy's feet off, like
Oh yeah, I did do that.
with a magic missile right out the gate. Like that's not normal.
I
You're a
jumped out
gnome
of a
that can
train
shoot.
hundreds of feet above a forest.
Yeah, you're a wizard. Like that adds a fair level of complication.
Yeah.
I mean, Fodor rides a turkey that routinely goes on a crazed charge. Like
Mm.
Edward turns into like a star,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
person.
I just
Like
thought that
that's
was.
insane.
I just thought that was funny that first session where we like.
Yeah, you guys went off the rails
What
immediately.
you were like, literally went off the rails because we were like,
Literally.
you're like the guy jumps out of the train. I was like,
I follow him. Yeah, fuck.
you're like, how? You're way up in the air. I was like, I stalked Featherfall this morning. Ticktail
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Hated it.
Falls on
Like
the
I had
train.
all these other plans, and none of them were jumping off the train. I deliberately put you started the campaign middle of nowhere to where you're like, we have nowhere. And I had to like make
stay
this
on
shit
the
up.
train. So what were
Yeah.
Can I ask what we were supposed to do other than stay on the train, obviously? But what was supposed to happen?
I had hoped you were gonna go and try to like what I had hoped you were gonna do was get the character, you know, heal him, and then ask questions like, "Who are you?" So that you could then like start looking at the houses,
Mm-hmm.
and he would tell you that they took the scroll, and not you'd get possession of it immediately by fucking blowing this guy's brains out.
So we just get told about the scroll, and they're like, scrolls. Instead,
Yeah,
we
and
immediately get
but
the
instead
scroll.
you're like, instead you three were like, this guy just got attacked. Let's heal him. How do you guys all feel about murder? And they're like, I like murder. I also like murder. Want to jump out of a train and commit murder? Yes, I do.
To be fair, I wasn't trying to murder him.
He's a level 1 character.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that a magic missile was gonna blow him to kingdom come.
Yeah, well, you max damage the whole thing. Like,
I know.
you couldn't have been like, I'm just gonna like wing him with one magic missile. No, all three into it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I thought he was gonna
magic
be.
missile can't miss, so you couldn't be like,
he was
just
an
want to shoot him in the foot.
He was an assassin. I thought he was gonna be a little bit more beefy.
He wasn't
than
an assassin. He was just a rogue.
But he slit a guy's throat.
Well, he wasn't a good rogue. He was just a rogue.
So he could have just like.
Truth be told, that character had a character sheet and everything. He was intended to be a reoccurring character in the campaign. I had actually
He was a rogue. He was
character.
a rogue with like access to magical darkness. So I was like, this guy's gonna be.
He didn't have magical darkness. He didn't have magical darkness. He had a one-off spell. He had darkness powder.
Yeah. Well.
So he had a one-off. He was going to do this, and that's it. And I believe you went in like you were in a tunnel or something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was a tunnel, but it was also like not.
Yeah, he had a darkness, like you know that darkness powder from Harry Potter. He had that.
Yes.
He just threw it in the air, and then instead like went a little bit more excited than he was supposed to, and then ran off.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be a character that grew throughout the game with you.
Like sort of like a
nemesis. That was going to be like a running adversary of yours, and you're just like, yeah, we'll kill him right away. He had a character sheet and everything. Like I was really upset.
I remember. Sir, what other points in our campaign have you were planned to happen and then didn't happen because
I had an entire like those druids you met on the side of the road. I had a whole camp built out for them. Like I had a camp. I had
druids.
The badger druids. Like I had a whole camp. I had like a leader. I had a lady that was gonna like help you understand what was going on. Like I had a whole like small forest city designed out for you to go see them, and you're like, right, fuck that, land ship away. You know?
Well, I mean,
they're like, do you want to come with us? You're like, how about you eat dicks? No.
So like I'm gonna like put you through the two options that you presented in front of me here. Furries.
There weren't furries.
They're druids that seem to prefer to walk around as talking animals. Landship.
You know what? When you put it like that, I do see why you preferred that one. I mean, like, if you put it like that, magical artifact, landship of alcoholics, versus...
Furries.
Yeah, versus people that like to be talking badgers. Yeah, okay, I get it. There may have been a slight error in my logic.
Not just like to be, prefer to be talking badgers over just being like walking around as people.
You know what? In hindsight, that may be weird. I feel like that may be a little strange. So yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. All right.
Furries. No one likes furries.
Except furries.
Yeah, but they are quiet about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that kind of makes sense. It was a hard sell too, and then David was like, that's when he dropped that knowledge that all Fodor wants is a landship.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, we can fly. He's like, stupid. So, ship with wheels. What do you think about it?
Yeah. And then, if I remember that right, they were very concerned about the body they had found in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
So, we were like, if we hang around these people for too long, we do not have very good charisma. The fact that we got past one deception check was a miracle. So,
I feel that Edward has very, very good. I don't have Edward.
I don't like it. I don't think I even have his sheet.
No, I gotta check and see if I have it. I don't know, but I think Edward has high charisma. Fodor doesn't, and David plays it so well. Like, Fodor is such a well-balanced character. Like, he's not dumb, but he's got, like, no common sense.
Yeah.
Like that last one where we were talking about it. He's like, how are we going to get to the moon? He's like, do we need some special advice, some special equipment to survive on the moon? Mm-hmm. And I remember Rumble Bobskin being like, I'm going to be honest, I was unprepared for you to ask that question. I mean, I was prepared for that question, but just not from you. And then he's like, because it's really small. And he's like, there it is. There's the dumb.
There it is. There it is.
There's the dumb.
Ticto has 0 charisma.
That was awesome. Yeah, Edward's got a +3. Edward's got a little bit of charisma.
Okay.
I just thought it was great. Like, David is so good with the wild character. Like, because the moon is really small. There we go. That's the dumb I was waiting for.
That's the dumb part. I see it now.
I see it. I know what you're talking about. It's fucking loved that one. That one was so much fun. I like how you also cornered Bob. And we're like, and I also like the fact that his name is Bob. He goes by Bob, yet he's like an archfey.
Yeah. You gotta keep up the pretenses. Yeah.
But like how you're like, listen, I feel you have fucked things up. And he's like, I don't really know what you're talking about.
I was like,
I don't feel like I fucked anything up.
It's just like Ticto's so like socially inept, people forget that he's like smart.
Yeah.
Like super smart. So then like he's like, I feel like this is your fault. Ergo.
Yeah, but your wisdom's fair. You're just like super tough. And you're dexterous.
Yeah. I just have 0 charisma and I'm weak as shit.
Strength. You are weak as shit and you have no charisma.
I rolled so well for this character. I couldn't believe it. I rolled I didn't roll below like a 12, I think.
See, I love rolling for it, but like, sometimes I want to be like, don't re-roll ones. I think the next campaign I run, you're not going to re-roll ones.
That's fair.
So like, just to see, but only one time. So you'll have one like super dump stat.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I like how it plays, but sometimes you bastards are so fucking lucky. It's
Mhm.
disgusting.
You were there for that one. I like rolled like
Yeah, I
like
know.
a 10, a 12, and then like like an 18, a 17, and like two
218.
16s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's got
stupid.
218s and a 19. I'm like, that's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I need to get into the habit of like adding the stuff I give you into your D&D Beyond, but 90% of the time I have to go to work immediately after, so I forget.
Yeah, I have two. There's some stuff that I'm in need of. That was
Yeah, the spells.
the spells, and then I've got a bunch of scrolls too.
Yeah, but the scrolls you can just keep track of yourself.
You know. So
You can also add them too if they're just traditional stuff. You could just add them too.
yeah, I was having trouble with some of them, but
Yeah.
I was like, I think the other thing that I struggle sometimes with our campaigns is I feel like we're always like we don't get like a whole lot of downtime.
No.
Because like wizards need downtime, kind of to like
Yeah, you got to
research
rest.
and whatnot. Well, like not even rest, but like ghost research
To the
spells,
library.
or like or like I have, I like wizards are capable of like, because if I wanted to and I had the gold, I could like prepare scrolls and stuff for like Edward to use, or like
Yeah, well, that's on you. You have to say it.
yeah.
But
Yeah. I feel
you
like we're
guys
always
just
like sprinting
gallivant
from
all
one
over.
thing to the next all the
But
time.
that's your
so
guys' choice.
that's true.
I do ask you frequently, so what are we going to do? And all of you are like, to the next thing. I'm like, you could take a nap. Fuck that. Next thing.
I think usually the most we usually ask for is a long rest, and then we move on.
Yeah. Yeah, but most of the time you're like, no, fuck it, away. Well, murder. You guys are murder hobos at heart. You just like to pretend you're not.
I don't think Ticto's a murder hobo.
I think you like to pretend you're not a murder hobo, but I think
disagree.
if Ticto had his way, he would be like murder.
No. Because Ticto's the one that's always like talking down Edward and
who has
Hodor.
taken like an absolute serial killer
Yeah.
way of going. I think
Garrett's scurry.
why do you always get that? Why do you always get that character? Like no matter what campaign we play with David and Brian,
There's one of
you
them that's
always
just, like,
end up as like the voice of reason.
I
Like
don't
I thought it
know.
was funny. You're like
Even
the
when
other two were
I've
sociopaths.
made like always happens somehow. Like one of the first campaigns I ever played, I was a barbarian that somehow became the voice of reason for the party.
Yeah. I just remember the like with the Great Gript campaign, or the evil campaign, where you were still like,
See, that one's understandable. Like order cleric, come on. Like there's gonna like he's gonna be the the rock of the party, so to speak.
but you were
like,
literally the character that Asmodeus was like, you want to do evil stuff, and you're like, do I? That's all I think. But
yeah, I don't know. Well, it's like I keep ending up being like the character that has to hold the leash, and one of these times I want to not be that character. Like even
you tried to as Zerikos, but you ended up having to do that too.
Yeah, because everyone was insane, so we had to like move the story along somehow. Yeah, I tried to with Zerikos. Tried, it didn't work.
Well, you also had to keep like trying to like get the party on. Yeah, you did spend a fair amount of time trying to like get the party on track, because the person who was like desperate to be the face of the party just wanted to like reenact RuPaul's Drag Race like constantly, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to like proposition men when we're literally on a bridge? I want to start a cabaret show here. What? Why? This is a bridge.
Yeah.
But there's people here. Okay, yeah, and they're starving to death. Like maybe don't put on a feathered cape.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very
Which did happen in the campaign, just So if anybody who's listening or watching thinks I'm just randomly adding words, no, that was his goal. Refugees on a bridge. He's like, cabaret.
It's because he thought he wanted to be a bard after he agreed to be the healer, and then decided that even though we found out he discovered very early on that bard does not work as the healer.
Not at all. Because he died the very first one, and I had to like flub dice rolls to keep him going.
You should have killed him.
You were talking the character, not the player, because
yes,
sometimes you think about
I fully expect you to like murder the hell out of Ticto if he ever like does something absolutely stupid.
No, you guys are proving very difficult to kill.
I mean, if Ticto's by himself, there's not. I mean, evidenced by Namasu like one shot my ass.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, do we have anything else? I think we're kind of like at wit's end with just the two of us.
I don't think I have really anything else to talk about, but again, if anyone's still watching, please give us a follow. Oh, I also forgot. Hey Joel, do you need dice?
I do. I am a dice hoarder.
Do you like dice?
I've heard of dice. I've heard that I think I might.
Well, if you really like dice and you need dice and you're a dice goblin like I am and you like the clickety clacks, then you should check out NOL 15. You should check out Tabletop Loot and use the offer code NOL 15. They've got a fine selection of dice, and also, unfortunately, the code doesn't work for this, but they also have a monthly subscription box where you get some pretty sweet dice sets once a month. So I've got this whole set of they're stone dice. So we've got a few different kinds of.
Why did you not lead with stone
marble
dice?
Yeah, they're not actually made of stone. They're like they look like they're made of stone. So like I've got like sandstone, and then I've got some that look like marble.
I actually really like them. Those are really cool.
Yeah, the sandstone ones are sweet.
Tabletop Blue, you get some good stuff. I got some of my favorite ones I got for the holiday season.
Yeah,
they've got the like glitter on the inside. That's really cool.
Yeah, and they even sent a metal set for Christmas too, which is rad. But yeah, so if
metal is like that's like your first badge as a dork.
Yeah.
Like as a nerd, you're like, do I need metal dice?
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, I keep like breathing over like the display case that is like there's like gemstone dice and stuff like that. I was like, no, I can't justify $100 purchase.
David is like jonesing for
he wants the
there's
bone
a set
dice.
of dice. Yeah, that are made of bone.
Yeah. Anyway,
like
if you want dice or D&D based accessories, check out Tabletop Loot and use the offer code NOL15. Thanks for watching, those that decided to tune in, and we'll see you again next week. We'll be back to our normal campaign.
That is correct. All right, thank you for spending this hour with us and listening to me ramble about what it is to be a DM.
Yep.
And I look forward to showing you some of the skills next week.
And
or being frustrated by these three bastards.
Also, feel free to check out our other social media that'll be on the next screen. Thanks, guys.